尊敬的各位家长、同学们，大家好，欢迎来到飞达教育系列线上讲座。在正式开始前，我们会稍微等待一下还没入场的学生和家长。飞达教育是美国唯一真正注重孩子们的素质教育以及全方位发展的教育团队，致力于从小培养他们的领导力、社会责任感、国际化视野以及对政治时事的关注意识。2004年，由毕业于美国常青藤名校校友魏新先生和斯坦福大学前副校长、教务长 Dr. Miller 等著名人士的协助下创办。魏先生早年在华尔街从事人工智能金融系统开发，硅谷高科技公司成功创业后，全身心致力于教育事业，被家长誉为藤娃背后的推手。飞达教育在南北加有9个校区 Cupertino、Fremont、Pleasanton、san.ramon、Palo Alto、Arcadia、Diamond Bar、Irvine、San Diego。 经验丰富的教育团队与专业的服务，在升学规划、课外活动、大学申请等各个方面为学生提供最佳选择。多年来，飞达教育高品质的专业教育指导屡获美国各项专业机构的认证。2016年，飞达教育全球青少年领袖培育项目受美国总统义工奖认可，成为指定颁奖机构。2018年，飞达教育被美国大学理事会 College Board 认证为 AP 学分授课地点。2019年，飞达教育不仅再次成为美国奥林匹克数学竞赛 AMC 考场，更领先业界获得 WASC WASC SEP 认证，与私立学校合作，在飞达教育各大中心提供 WASC 认证的 AP 学分班，以及 College Board AP 课最高认证项目。全美只有不超过2000个学校有开课资质的 AP Capstone Diploma， 包含 AP Seminar 以及 AP Research 课程。2020年，再度领先业界，由飞达教育创始人魏老师集结最强文书指导团队，出版大学申请文书集。本书汇集多年来辅导学生的写作指导精华，并通过实例帮助学生从题意的掌握、构思、修辞到理解写作的原理和技巧，对于有心加强写作训练的读者有很好的参考价值和实质帮助。飞达教育今年大学申请结果喜报频传，据不完全统计，飞达同学们已经收到了上千封录取通知书，包括200多个 UC Berkeley、UCLA、USC 南加大录取通知。Ivy League 名校及藤校级别大学有100多个录取通知书，包括哈佛、斯坦福、耶鲁、麻省理工 MIT、加州理工、宾大沃顿商学院、哥伦比亚、康奈尔、布朗、达特茅斯、芝加哥大学、约翰霍普金斯、西北大学、杜克大学、卡内基梅隆、威廉姆斯、Pomona， 几乎99%的飞达学生都进入他们心中理想的大学 Dream School， 恭喜学生们！在飞达教育做大学申请的学生，从11年级下学期开始，就会和飞达专业的升学顾问团队开始申请学校的制定工作，和资深的文书写作老师开始作文的撰写流程，从选择题目、分析题目、写作素材的构思，学生们按部就班地跟着富有经验的作文指导老师撰写属于自己的个性化作文，为大学申请跨出成功的第一步。飞达教育针对每一位正在准备大学申请的学生，除了安排专业的申请顾问、写作老师、表格填写辅导老师以外，每周还固定提供线上 Q&A 时间，由最资深的升学顾问亲自在线上解决所有申请学生的疑难杂症。丰富的升学辅导经验加上专业以及细心的服务，每年都帮助我们的学生从容不迫地递交完美的大学申请，获取最耀眼的录取通知。2021秋季线上 AP 学分课程荣誉课程已经开放报名啦 ，Weighted GPA 等你来争取。飞达教育与著名私立高中合作，拥有大学理事会认证的教师团队，提供 WASC 认证的 AP 学分课。我们开设的 AP 学分课程包括 AP 美国历史、欧洲历史、世界历史、AP 宏观经济、微观经济、AP 人文地理、AP 计算机、AP 统计、 AP 生物、AP 环境科学、AP 物理、AP 中文以及 AP Capstone Diploma 的 AP Research 和 AP Seminar 等24门课程。想要提升 GPA， 为自己在大学申请上加分，请立刻与我们联系吧。未来理工科、商科、社会科学的学生是否正在苦恼如何增加自己的竞赛经验？飞达教育即将开班的数学奥林匹克竞赛 AMC8 培训课程，帮助孩子为进阶 USAMO 数学竞赛做好准备。如果你对生物、物理有兴趣，飞达教育生物奥林匹克竞赛 USABO 和物理奥林匹克竞赛 F=MA 培训班已经开放报名啦。竞赛培训课程帮助孩子巩固知识基础，提升专业学科水平，为未来的科研项目打下坚定的基础。专业的讲师，多年的竞赛指导经验，助学生一举获得数学、物理、生物等奥林匹克竞赛全美高等荣誉。事不宜迟，请立刻联系我们了解课程内容吧。如何在大学申请时脱颖而出，展现自己在特定学科上的浓厚兴趣、批判性思考和专业的学术能力？飞达教育全新推出2021高中生科研实习项目，包括理工科、商科、经济、人文科学，集结 Stanford、Harvard、UCLA、UC Berkeley、USC、UCSD 等高等学府各个专业的教授导师，指导高中生挖掘自己的研究项目。从确定课题方向、文献研究、暑期科研实习到个人论文发表，领导学生探索相关领域的深层知识，不仅提升个人写作能力，还有机会成为名校的敲门砖。飞达每个学习中心只有少数3到5个名额，有兴趣的学生赶快联系各中心的老师吧。关注飞达教育微信公众号以及官方网站 ivmax.com， 了解更多升学资讯。福利时间到，锁定美西时间每周五下午6点半到7点半线上公益教育讲座系列，由飞达教育创办人魏老师、张校长亲自主持，讨论眼下家长和学生们最关心的时事与教育话题。讲座结束后，更有魏老师、张校长亲自答疑。大家记住，每周五晚6点半，我们不见不散哦。如果您对我们的项目感兴趣，想进一步帮助到孩子，请联系飞达的工作人员吧。谢谢您的到来。
Partnering with Franklin Education Foundation, IVMax has successfully expanded its research internship programs for high-achieving high school students to experience hands-on and university-level research in computer science, machine learning, engineering, biology, environmental science, psychology, economics, political science, international relations, etc. We implement a cross-disciplinary approach to facilitate the development of our students' critical thinking skills, evidence-based analysis, teamwork and collaboration, and presentation skills, which are all essential for students' future success in college and beyond. Mentored by world-class research scientists and college professors trained by Stanford, Harvard, Brown, UCB, UCLA, UCSD, UCI, UCSC, USC, MIT, Notre Dame, Cornell, and etc. Our students will have the opportunity to investigate local or global issues and provide solutions to real-world problems. Upon completion of the research internship programs, students complete their research project papers and present them to their mentors. Some could submit for publications or science fair competitions. The admissions officers at Stanford, Princeton, Harvard, MIT, and other Ivy League universities want to know if you have had any unique experiences throughout your high school career in pursuing your passion in research in STEM, business, art, and humanities. With the Franklin Research Internship Program, our students not only stand out in their college applications, but also develop passion and skills essential to their future success. Franklin Research Internship Program, to your dream colleges and beyond.
I'd like to take this time to reflect on my experience at Franklin Institute Research Program. I personally was the most impressed with the advising. My advisor was Dr. Chen, and from the beginning to the end, I think he did an amazing job. He actually suggested and introduced the work of Dr. Masaro's kid clock to me, and I was able to expand my research upon that. Additionally, in the actual conducting research phase, he ran me through every single step, and I'm extremely grateful. Additionally, he actually connected me to the original founder of the work, Dr. Masaro himself, and right now I'm actually getting my paper in the publishing process with Dr. Masaro as of now. I personally learned a ton through this experience, and I'd like to share with you that this experience actually pushed me out of my comfort zone, and especially with learning new topics such as convolutional neural networks, which I had no idea in the beginning, and actually coming into this experience. So my overall message for students who are interested in research is that the Franklin Research Institute is an amazing opportunity, and I think that you should definitely step up and actually participate, because I honestly think that it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and you'll gain a ton from. So thank you.
I want to show my gratitude and appreciation to my mentor, Dr. Ge, who has always been there when I have the weirdest or quirkiest questions possible. And throughout this summer, I have pushed myself to do a lot of things that I wouldn't do without this program. For example, I learned how to code in C language to operate an Arduino board through using the code. I learned how to do supporting structures on 3D printing. I learned how to formally analyze and read the research paper on the topic that I'm interested in. So I gained a lot of skills, and it's definitely a very valuable experience this summer.
I was super lucky to be able to deepen my knowledge of biology through the Franklin Research Internship Program. We had classes to teach us about experimental paper writing and another course that assisted in programming practice. Personally, coding is not really my strongest suit, but the first 3 weeks definitely contributed to my success in the following 3 weeks. I had the honor of working with Dr. Zhu and Adam. I quickly grew to love their form of research after learning so much about it in such a short period of time. And I truly do not think that working with anyone else but these two wonderful teachers would have helped me gain so much knowledge in just 3 weeks. We learned how to utilize different platforms and codes to make observations and analyze our data. Overall, I really enjoyed this internship because it helped me find something I really enjoy and taught me how to write and present research papers.
Welcome to Ivy Max Webinar 79. I am the host of today's webinar. My name is Ken. Today's topic is essays. 欢迎各位家长来到飞达教育第79期公益讲座。今天我们讲座的主题是如何写一份满怀灵魂和温度的文书 The Deal Maker or Breaker。我们会邀请到3位强校背景文书专家，分享近20年帮助亚裔学生的成功经验，深度剖析亚裔学生文书写作的误区，让你的申请文书脱颖而出。接下来我们将介绍今天讲座的嘉宾。Let's welcome Ivy Max founder, Mr. Xin Wei, our application final reviewer, once was the college interviewer of the University of Pennsylvania. Dr. Renhong Wang graduated from Brown University, has worked in the education field for more than 10 years. Dr. Angela Garbin, with a PhD from USC, is passionate about education and having a great experience in teaching AP psychology, seminar, and research. And Mrs. Helena Anderson is a graduate of Harvard University. She has worked for Ivy Max for 15 years as a teacher, coach, and editor. 首先，让我们祝贺一下14位在飞达取得优异的 AP 成绩的同学。Congratulations to 14 AP Capstone Diploma recipients from Ivy Max. 那同时恭喜8位在富兰克林项目中取得优异名次的同学。 Congratulations to A Franklin Scholarship semi-finalist.
I'm sorry, I was muted. So I wanted to say that, I was one of the first instructors for AP Capstone. Yes, thank you, Ken. Going back to this, AP Capstone is a very unique program that, not a lot of high schools over, the North America actually offer. And, we're very proud of our students that have been able to, submit. Basically, you have to complete AP seminar, AP research, and get 3s or above on those tests, along with 4 other, AP classes. So with the same type of score. So we are super proud of our students this year that have been able to complete that. The AP Capstone program is very unique, and it really helps students stand out. When I first started teaching this program for IB Max, there were only around 5,000 students, between 5,000 and 6,000 students that were enrolled in it across the nation. So this is a great opportunity for students to have their academic portfolios stand out. Also, then can you go to the next slide? Talking about the Franklin Scholarship, the research program that we started, Ivy Max did. I was, very involved with that program as well. Hannah Y, I'm not going to say her last name, was actually a student that I worked with very close on. And she made it to the finalist. So I'm very happy and proud of the work that she did. She really worked hard. It piggybacks on the experience that students get in AP Capstone, and then we can move that into the Franklin Research Scholarship Program or the Franklin Scholarship. So this is unique because for students to reach top schools, they need, if they're going to, regardless if they're going into business or if they're going into STEM related fields or other humanities, this is going to set them apart from other students. So these 2 programs that we offer is, very beneficial to the student. And, we'll talk more about like their reflections and so on and, so forth about that. But I'm very, very happy of being a part of both the Capstone program and Franklin research program. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Garvin. 那我就用中文补充2句。其实刚才 Dr. Garvin 说的有几点非常的重要，因为现在标化考试的成绩越来越被淡化，所以能够体现学生在学术方面的竞争优势，东西越来越少了。Okay, 那现在就说AP Capstone 那是学生这个所谓 AP 学分课方面最高级别的这个最挑战的2堂 AP 课了。所以 Dr. Garvin 也说了，全国因为很少部分的学生才能够有机会上这2门课，所以有这个荣誉的学生是非常非常突出的，那真的就是与众不同的。那这个是一方面。那第2个方面呢，就是说 Franklin Research 也是，就是做科研项目，也是学生现在还在剩下的不多的几个块面上能够有突出自己学术竞争优势的很好的一个领域。所以 就是说一定不要错过了任何机会。第一，多一点 AP 学分课，有很好的成绩；第二，在科研这个就是说自己喜欢有兴趣的领域，有一些科研的经历，将来申请大学的时候是绝对有竞争优势的。好，那今天在进入主题之前，对吧 ？Dr. Garvin 和任宏老师会详细的讨论这个学生在申请文书方面怎么样能够写出有灵魂的、真正有深度、有高度的申请作文有很多非常精彩的内容。那我在这之前呢，稍稍介绍一下今年新的申请的这个一些新的这个要求，或者说新的信息。那首先呢，在这个共同申请网站平台 Common App 有一些新的东西。OK， 那不管是学生的这个活动，还是文书，还是这个其他的填写学生信息的方面，其实今年都有一些新的要求。那我在这呢就不一一去详细的解释了。那如果有12年级的现在正在做申请的高中生或者说家长在听讲座的话，事后一定不要忘了我们每周安排的线上表格填写指导。OK， 每一个礼拜都有几次的机会，学生有任何填表格方面的这个问题都可以上线，然后在有经验的老师指导之下，把这个表格能够填写的完美。那除了这个表格方面以外呢，当然文书我们前面也都看到大标题了，对吧？作文是最重要的申请环节了。那今年 Common Application 还是跟往年一样，有多个题目可以选择。那这个作文题目里面呢，第4个是新的题目，然后呢，最后一个呢是 Open Topic， 也就是说，你如果其他的这6个作文题目都不太喜欢的话，觉得都没有合适的内容，你也可以根据第7个最后一个题目，把你想象的最耀眼的、最能够突出你自己的这个活动经历和故事，针对这个作文题目来写。所以一定不要担心，就说哇，这些作文题目好像都没有合适我的这个故事和经历的，没关系，那你就写最后一个 Open Topic 这个作文题目就好了。当然，从这个整个这个 COVID 的这1-2年的这个影响，对吧 ？Common Application 今年的这个 Additional Information 里面呢，特别也指出，你如果这个 COVID-19 对吧，疫情对你有什么很大的影响，或者说对你家庭有什么很大的影响，这个也是可以申请表格上能够体现出来的。但是我在这提醒大家一句 ，OK， 一定不要就是说把自己去年因为shut down online school， 所以我写一大堆这方面的东西。为什么呢？这个一点都不独特，对吧？去年shut down 90%以上的全国各地的学生都是在 home online schooling。OK， 这个没什么很特别的可以写的。有别的 COVID-19 方面很独特的经历的，那这个是可以在这个地方去单独的解释一下的。而且还有一点要提醒大家，就是说这个 additional information section 绝对不是你写第2篇 Common App 长篇作文的一个机会。OK， 如果 Common App 真正要求你写2篇作文，或者说大学接受2篇作文，那 Common Application 一直就会在他们7个题目里面让你选择2个题目去写2篇作文。所以一定不要把这个环节当成是你可以额外提交1篇作文的机会，绝对不可。OK， 大学要求你提供什么资料就提供什么资料，你如果额外的提供一大堆资料，招生班老师会很反感。第一，你让他在已经很忙的情况下，还想他多看你的资料吗？不可能的事情。OK， 第二，他会感觉到你以为自己很了不起，或者说有什么独特的这个特权，所以别人交1篇作文，你交2篇作文。Excuse me。所以一定要按照游戏规则来提供申请的资料。当然，在允许范围以内，他给你的这1篇长篇作文，你一定要把它写好。OK， 这篇作文再重要不过了。好， 那今年呢，又有些新的学校加入 Common Application 这个平台。那其中可能大家最感兴趣的是 UIUC， 对吧？这个伊利诺伊大学香槟分校，因为这个是很多华裔亚裔比较喜欢特别想学 CS 学理工科的学生，对吧？很多学生申请这个学校，所以今年呢，他也加入了 Common App， 你不用以他自己的学校申请平台或者说 Coalition 的平台来做申请了。那还有一个就是 Texas A&M， 这个也是很多华裔亚裔学生有兴趣的学校之一。那总的来说呢，最大部分的这个变化是学生的这个 demographics， 就是学生的基本信息的填写这部分，很多东西被取消了，对吧？这个你有没有参加有没有参军过？学校有没有受过处分等等？其实我觉得这都是针对弱势群体的这个学生就是说身上有不良记录的、有坏记录的学生，现在突然一下，对吧？这个极左的倾向是这个大环境里面大学都不准问这些问题了。OK， 你受过处分的，大学也不需要知道你到底以前有没有记过，所以挺奇怪。这个针对亚裔、华裔学生来说，可能没有太大的直接的影响。而且呢，这个是不是美国公民等等这些全部都有所改变，不像以前那样要问了。但是 OK 而且这个就是说你是男生还是女生等等这些也都不准再问了。我们都知道为什么，对吧？现在这个所谓这种极左的倾向，不能有任何这方面的这个所谓歧视，对吧？但是实际上大学它在招生的时候，可能有这些信息，它还能保证一定的平衡，对吧？像男女生的平衡，那现在都不问了。有时候这个名字真的是你不知道是男生还是女生的，因为有很多名字是男生女生都可以用的，对吧？所以那还会给大学招生办的老师带来一定的困扰。那在这个就是说比如说你是信什么宗教等等，这些一概都不能再问。好，那我前面说了，今年新的题目是 Common App 的第4个作文题目。那这个作文题目呢，实际上就是说也跟这个疫情有一定的关系。那实际上就是要学生怎么学会感恩，在这一方面的成长，有这么一篇文章。所以我们平时总是跟学生也好，跟家长也好分享的，就是说在整个高中的成长过程当中，怎么学会能够体会别人的这个心情关注他人、关注社会是非常非常重要的。那今年专门还有一个作文题目，让学生能够在这一方面去表达他的成长的经历。那这个 Coalition 的平台还是5个作文题目，它前面4个具体的作文之外呢，第5个题目也像 Common App 一样，最后一个题目是 Open Topic 的，所以你没有合适的内容，总是可以用这个 Open Topic 这个随便什么方面的经历、什么方面的故事，都是可以用来申请大学的。OK， 所以就是说不要纠结你有还是没有哪一个方面的经历，只要你有好的经历、好的故事，其实申请大学都是可以写出很好的文章来的。那具体的，我在这分享几点之后呢，我们就可以看学生的文章和整个申请过程当中，怎么样写好作文是最重要的了。因为这个标化考试被淡化了，对吧？我前面提到了，那实际上更难在学习从学习的这个角度来讲来区分学生的，所以 AP 学分课是至关重要的，能够帮学生在学术竞争优势方面保持一定的这个竞争力。那第2个呢，就是科研的这个经历，对吧？我前面提到了 ，Dr. 也专门指出了，这个通过上 AP Seminar、AP Research 和做 Franklin Research， 实际上是非常非常一个好的途径，让学生在科研方面从这个方面体现你的学术竞争力。那当然，最后就是你的这个软性竞争实力了。那么软性竞争实力怎么体现？第一是通过各式各样的很有趣、有深度的课外活动，对吧？ 你有了这些经历，有了这些故事，你将来申请的时候才能写出很好的申请的文书，对吧？所以呢，就是说既要积极的参与活动，课外活动，同时呢，大学申请的这一步也不能忽视了，怎么样能够写出精华的申请文书，才能让你这些经历和成长的故事真正在招生办老师的这个心目当中留下印象。而且印象越深刻，这样的学生才真正会被录取的。好，那下面呢，我们就把这个 floor 交给 Dr. Garvin 和任宏老师，让他们来讨论一下，就是在整个申请文书的写作过程当中，该注意一些什么，怎么样才能写好这个让招生办老师眼睛一亮的申请文书。好，谢谢。All right, Dr. Garvin and Mr. Renholm.
You're still
Sorry,
muted.
I was muted. Sorry. I mean, obviously I don't speak Chinese. However, I kind of, based on the slide and everything that, Mr. Wei was, trying to convey is that, why did
Sorry.
Nevertheless, what Mr. Wei was trying to convey is that, now, in this, application season, and perhaps even in the future, scores are going to be, optional, SAT, ACT scores. So, and it's always kind of been where the student essay has been one of the most challenging aspects of the academic portfolio because it requires a lot more, in-depth reflection that we require as editors, as today, Rin and I are editors and have been for a long time for Ivy Max. So a lot of students find this extremely overwhelming. So, they've already done the grade work, classroom work and everything. And then, some of them might have the SAT, ACT scores, to accompany that. But it's always been, from our perspective, I think you would agree, Ren, that the essay really pushes someone over, right?
Yes. I mean, like another thing too is because high school English classes, they don't really teach you how to write this, right?
Exactly.
They teach you things like introduction, body paragraph. They don't really teach students how to highlight their experiences, their thoughts, like those kind of things that they really need to be able to do to show people, here's what makes me stand out.
Exactly. You took the words out of my mouth for sure. And so it's like you have to, it's kind of like peeling an onion, getting to the core, right? Where students have a really difficult time writing about themselves. And this is not something, like Rin just said, it's not something they've been taught in school. They're not supposed to use, first, pronoun of I, I did this, I did, so it's a really, transitional experience for most of our students, but it's also one of the most monumental that can add, especially nowadays with the COVID experience, not having to do test scores, that kind of thing. So the essays have, really come out to be, even more important than they even were before. Would you agree, Ren?
Oh, certainly. Because the SATs, a lot of schools, they don't look at them anymore, right? So, It'd be the APs, your essays, and then your recommendations. I'd say those are probably the three big ones.
Exactly. And a lot of students just have, how do I start, my essay, and Ren's going to cover some really good, essay starters later on, in our program. But, and then also why, why are you writing this about, whatever you're writing about, what's the significance of it, right? How, has this experience hopefully changed you or evolved you? And a lot of students, have difficulty with that. We definitely, based on our, feedback, students feel like they have become better writers because of their experience, going through this. As editors for Ren and myself, we aid them along in this process. So that's what we're here for. We're not here to write their story, but we're here to guide it. Okay, Ken? Okay, so in terms of, like I said, developing a winning essay is going to be very challenging, which is where the editors of Ivy Max come into play. So not only the main essay, that, Mr. Wei had referred to earlier, it's also, all these supplemental essays that the students are going to have to, address. Wouldn't you say, Ren, those are probably most of the challenging ones?
For sure. I was about to say, for instance, like a school like Stanford has 5 short questions, 50-word ones there, and then there's 3 250-word essays. So that's a lot of effort just to put into one school, in addition to the Common App essay. So
yeah.
Considering how low the acceptance rate for Stanford is, it's always a good question to ask, are you really sure you want to apply to this? Because applying to this school means that you're not putting in effort somewhere else where you're more likely to get it.
That's right. Even with the Ivy Leagues, some of them don't have as many additional essays, which is surprising, right, Ren? It's like,
yeah, Cornell only has 1.
Exactly. And so you're like, okay, I have 1 essay and it's more of a Y school, Y major essay, right?
Yeah, and similar like higher level ranking schools like Hopkins, Northwestern, Washington University, all very short, 200 to 400 words. That's
exactly. It. So, what we're trying to do, with our students is that, we look at, like, for instance, Stanford, most significant challenge society faces. Okay, well, that's pretty in depth, right? It's like, wow, okay. But, we want these, not in addition to the Common App or the coalition essay that gives a broader, perspective of the student and their personal, agenda and like what they've gone through and learned. With these individual essays, can really make a difference in terms of, getting accepted or not. Okay. For instance, for Stanford, last 2 summers, what did you do? So you as counselors, as Ren and I are, as well as editors, we need to make sure that students do something significant that's meaningful to either themselves and also the area that they're working toward.
So the answer to this one is not, I spent the last 2 summers studying for the SAT.
Yes. That, unfortunately, it might be true for some students, but that's something they cannot write about. Okay. So in terms of Chicago, they have very unique, prompts, I should say. And a lot of students struggle with these, but they're trying to make you think outside of the box and be creative, right? So that's how we have to approach that and interpret that as editors. Would you agree?
Right.
Ren?
So I would say for Chicago especially, it's, you want to show off your imagination, how you can think, because I also have students who are find it very difficult to be imaginative. They just stick to like, okay, here's what the facts are.
Here's the storyline.
What
Yeah,
it's asking for.
I know.
They want you to be imaginative. So go as far as you can with this. Don't try to say, well, they're saying this, but it's not going to work because they don't want to hear that. They want to hear something inventive.
Exactly. Like I said, the key term, thinking outside of the box, right? So, and then, I mean, if you look at Princeton, again, it's short, but you're supposed to pack a lot into that essay that, demonstrates something personable about that individual that's writing it. And then if we look at Yale, what person, past or present, would you invite to speak? Now, a lot of students ponder over this, okay? Because we're like, oh my God, I know that I've had several, over the years, many students, they're like, oh, what's the right answer? What's the wrong answer? There's no right or wrong. As long as, the person that you mention is someone that you can, justify why. And that then illuminates something about yourself, right, Ren?
Yeah, and so like you can pick from all throughout history. I think a common pitfall for some of these questions would be like, if they ask you what or when you would like to go to or who you'd like to talk to, a lot of people's first choice is something since 1900 or even since 1970. So it's like, are you sure there's like another 8,000 years of history you can look at?
Exactly. And then, the notorious why school essay. This, to be honest with you, even though it should be the most straightforward essay, it's one of the most difficult, because students can, for instance, think that, oh, I'm just going to write, I want to go to NYU Stern. And I'm going to apply, because there's so many opportunities for internships in New York City. That's not a good reason to go to NYU, right? So, you have to, my philosophy is that, it's a two-way street. You have to show why you're good for NYU, but also show why they're good for you. And you have to incorporate that into these types of essays. And that requires research, going beyond just, the front of the website, that they put forth. So any experience, Ren, for yourself?
Yeah, so basically a lot of people's first impulse is, well, I want to go to your school because it's prestigious and high ranking and it's in a great location.
Right.
that's not going to be enough because anyone can say that. So you have to say, well, I have this interest in engineering and you have this specialty in engineering. Here's how we match.
Exactly. So you really have to show how you're, and I also do it in two parts, that, you know, you have to be a good match inside the classroom and outside of the classroom. So it's not just academics, but it's also overall student body, what you're going to bring to the university. So
great insights. I think I need to translate some of that into Chinese.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Reed. Yeah, okay.
刚才两位老师讲的非常非常重要，这个特别是这个为什么选择我们这个大学，对吧 ？Why this school？ 这种文章呢，其实学生最容易翻跟头，看起来好像很简单，对吧？几个字就这么简单的一个问题。那仁宏老师也提到了，对吧？我为什么选择这个大学？这个大学因为排名很高，哪个方面学科是全世界第一的。那我因为要学这个学科，所以我就选择这个大学。学生都没有想过，如果仅仅只是这个原因的话，对吧？那所有申请群的所有的高中生，对吧？都可以交上同样一篇一模一样的这样写的文章。那这篇文章怎么能让你脱颖而出、与众不同，被学校欣赏，要录取呢？对吧？所以写这一类的文章，其实可以说是所有文章里面最挑战的文章。Dr. Garvin 说了很好，就是说你一定不能只说学校怎么样，所有的申请作文里面一定要谈到自己怎么样，对吧？所以这个就是说，你能给这个大学带来什么加分的东西，是非常非常必要的。为什么？因为这个部分希望是任何其他申请的学生都不可能带来的，那你就有希望被录取了。所以就是说我总是最后要检查学生这一类的文章的时候，问他们两个问题：第一，你的这篇文章能不能是别的申请这个大学的学生也可以用的？如果是，这个文章还不到位，还得继续写，一定得有你自己独特的东西，别人任何人都不能用。这第一。第二个问题，你如果把这篇文章里面的这个学校方面的这个所有涉及到这个学校的东西，简单换个名字，换一个别的学校，如果这个文章还 work 的话，那也不行。这个文章一定得是只能申请这个大学用，把一些简单的 reference 换成别的学校的，这个文章就不 work 了，那才算写到位了。如果只是简单换一换大学的名字或者科系或者教授的名字等等，同样的还是可以递另外一间大学，那这个文章根本还不起码的东西都还不够快，还得重新再写得更具体才行。所以就是说，所有这一类的文章 ，Why this school， 只能你用，只能用在这个大学，那才算写到位了。那这个是非常挑战的，而且特别是50个字100个字、150个字、200个字这种短篇的，更难做到这一点。所以就是说，所有申请的学生一定不能在这一类的文章上马虎了，以为好像跟别的作文题目比就这么简单的几个字，哪有什么难的呀？实际上这篇文章是，或者说这一类的文章是最难的文章之一。好，那我们下面继续听两位专家老师的讲解。
Okay. I'm sorry, I don't know what you said, but
yeah. So the two of you can continue to share your thoughts on essays.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Ken.
Oh.
Okay, Ren, take it over, please.
Sure. Yeah. So thank you. So we're going to go over like successful essays, how they start, and these are a few examples here. Now, also take note that this is not what their first drafts sounded like either. So don't take this to mean, okay, I have to write just like this, right now to get into college. Right? So a lot of these have changed over time. Okay. So the first one we see here, okay, so students who speak good English are likely to earn at least 3 times more wages than those who do not. Cesar, our local guide, told me when we were walking alongside him to patrol the hatcheries of the sea turtles. Struck by his words, I reached out. Okay, so we can tell from this opening line that this story is about Costa Rica. So we have these trips to Costa Rica where our students work with sea turtles, with sloths, with endangered tropical animals. They also work with the local schools there too. So for this kind of a story, right, we are hoping that the student doesn't just talk about Costa Rica, but also how this makes the student do something afterwards that's related to this trip, right? So I can talk more about that later on, but it is an important point to talk about. Like, we don't want to only contain the story in a trip, because anyone who goes on a trip could talk about a similar thing, right? Okay, but we see like this is a very vivid picture that the student paints about, like, okay, here's what we know what the problem is, right? So we're talking about education for students here, how to improve their economics. And well, what do we have at Ivy Max? We have this organization called EPIC, right, which is founded by a student who is now at Princeton, this freshman this year. And he actually created this organization where when students finish their trips in Costa Rica, they continue to teach the students there. So first, what they did was they created workbooks, right? They recorded videos and then they sent them to Costa Rica because the students there didn't have internet access, right? Then after COVID hit, our students in EPIC, what they did was they fundraised and then helped those students in Costa Rica get internet so they could start doing online teaching. So that's the kind of follow through and follow up we want to see with these kind of trips that can also be great stories to tell, right?
Right. So this is Kyle, right?
Well, yeah, I'm talking about Kyle. Okay.
So basically, it's important not just to say, put together the story, and then, so you have some sort of hook like this, student did, and then you talk about the experience, but then what you gained from that experience, but then what you did with that experience and that learning, what you learned from it. That's exactly right, what you're saying, Ren?
Yeah.
Okay.
And when we get to things like common popular topics, I'll elaborate more on some pitfalls with this kind of topic.
Right.
So I'll get there later. Yeah.
Okay.
So next,
I think we can move on, and you guys can cover them in more detail later on. Okay. Yeah. So now let's hear from one of our other editors, experienced editors, guiding the whole college application process, Miss Helen.
Whenever students write Common App essays, the long personal statement for the non-UC colleges, those essays should be very, very personal and specific to the student and not be about their academic interests, which are usually going to be covered in other supplemental essays that they write. So one of the things that I find students do a lot is write about a topic that is going to be covered in other essays for the school. So that's something to try to avoid. And then another thing that I notice, especially with the students that I work with at Ivy Max, is a lot of students want to write about an experience that demonstrates their determination or their ability to work hard, because those are valued attributes. But every student that applies to a college could say that they're determined and that they work hard and that they have perseverance. So writing about that is not really going to distinguish an applicant from other applicants. So they should really write about something that's personal to them and specific and unique to them. I know that a lot of other students will write about sort of wrestling with their Chinese heritage. Maybe they'll say that they feel partly Chinese, they feel partly American, and then they realize they could be a combination of both. So that is another essay that gets written about a lot. And so that's not going to distinguish their application from other students. The last thing that I would say is there is one essay question that the Common App asks, which is about a challenge or a difficulty that a student has had. And I find that a lot of students' parents are very reluctant for them to write about that essay. I think probably they want their student to present themselves in a very positive light as never having had any problems and as always being a good student and is always able to overcome any challenge. So the point of the essay question that's asking about a problem or a challenge isn't so the student will emphasize the problem or the challenge, it's to explain how they overcame it. And that essay question is actually a very good one to answer. Admissions officers like to see students who have been presented with some sort of difficulty in life and then been able to overcome it. So in particular for Chinese American students and other Asian American students, I'm sure that a lot of parents and students have heard about the lawsuit that Asian American students filed against Harvard University for not admitting as many Asian American students as it should. When the discovery process happened in that lawsuit, and Harvard had to produce a lot of its internal documents about how it made its admissions decisions, Asian American students did very, very well and scored quite well on things like standardized test scores, on academics, on extracurricular activities. But some of the things that they didn't score as well in, that were things that Harvard pointed out, were things like courage and respect of their peers. Now that sounds pretty bad when you first hear about that as being something that Harvard would say about Asian American students. But if you think about the fact that many, many Asian American students don't want to write about the essay topic that asks them about a challenge or a difficulty they've had, and then you think about what Harvard is given to evaluate, if the student has never had a difficulty to overcome, if the student has never had a challenge, it's going to be very difficult for them to demonstrate courage. So it may not be that Harvard is eliminating Asian American students. It may be that because of the topics that those students choose to write about, they can't really demonstrate courage. In order to demonstrate courage, you have to have had a difficulty. You have to have tried to do something that was difficult for you to do, and then you have to work through that and come out the other side.
Very well said. In fact, that's the next topic of discussion. What are some of the popular essay topics? Most students love to write about, and what are some of the common pitfalls? So take it away, Dr. Garvin and Mr. Huang.
Yeah. So here we have a list of popular topics, and I'll talk a bit more about the service trip one that I was saying earlier. So a common pitfall for this one is people just talk about the trip, right? Oh, I went to this place. I worked with some kids. I changed their life. They changed mine. I went home the end, right? So the problem with this is, one, it is very shallow, right? It's a one-time trip. There's a story that Principal Vicky likes to tell is there was an op-ed written in, I think it was New York Times, like about 9 years ago. This woman had flown to Africa, taken a picture with a baby, went home, and then complained why she didn't get into Harvard. Well, if you're thinking like that, then you probably don't deserve to go to Harvard anyway, because it's not about that you want to look good for a little short period of time and feel good about yourself. It's what did you actually do? So this is the difference between what I'm saying with just doing that one service trip and then what our students in EPIC actually did, which is they built an infrastructure to continue education for those kids after they came home. If you think just going there once and then not doing anything after is going to be enough and is going to convince someone that you're a philanthropist now, it's not going to work.
That is so true. And so these one-shot deals, that you were talking about, Ren, you have to, as counselors, I mean, this comes before even, us getting to the essay, development, is that we have to encourage our students to follow up. So that's why, building on your portfolio is super important.
Yeah. Okay. So, let's see common pitfalls. So for instance, it's very common for students to say, here's the list of my accomplishments, right? I did this, I became the leader of this club, and I won these awards. So I had a student last year who had this problem with her first draft, and basically said, no, don't do that, right? Basically think about a story where you can actually highlight your emotions, your reflections. So this student I'm talking about, even though her grades were not great, she was still able to get into Tufts, right? But like she had to change her story completely to be able to highlight, okay, here, it's not just like concrete numbers. It's about how I grew and what I thought about this whole process. Okay. And then let's see, so as you might hear other people say, the UCs also really hate essays that are just resumes. So that goes with the lack of focus here. Like you have to have a story that you want to tell. It's not just a list of things that are happening. Right.
Yes, I totally agree with that. You don't want any essay to just be an elaboration of your, portfolio or your resume. That's not going to work, right? This is your one opportunity to really personalize yourself, right, Ren?
Yeah.
And us as editors, that's what we're trying to get out of our students. And so it cannot be just a list of, here's the topic, and then I did this and this and this that, fulfilled that topic, the goals of that topic, whatever it may be, right?
Right. So I would say for students, they should definitely think about what's the most important thing colleges should know about them. Don't just think of it as, okay, here's some prompts. Oh, this prompt sounds easy, I'll do that one. Right. No, you have to lead with what is most important about you or most important to you, because if you don't say it, colleges won't know like what makes you special. Yeah. Okay. So here at popular colleges, as you know, like there's all these here. So the UCs, of course, they're getting like, was it like 6 of the colleges over 100,000 applications last year? So UC Irvine is down to 25% acceptance rate, right? UCLA is 12% now. So it is getting increasingly difficult to get into these colleges, especially now that they're not looking at the SATs anymore. It's going to be even harder, right?
And all the more reason that I feel, that the essays are going to become even more important. I mean, They were already important, but now I really feel like they're highlighted.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then I would say too, for popular colleges, like everyone's trying to apply to the same schools. So maybe you should apply somewhere else. Think about like Washington University, Vanderbilt, Emory. We don't have as many students apply to them. They're also really good schools. So not everyone should try Harvard or Stanford, because that's just more piles of applications that that you're fighting with tons and tons of people with.
Right. The acceptance rate is so low, it's not, I understand that a lot of students feel like if they didn't try, then they would feel, regretful, but you got to be realistic, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I guess if you want to do like 1 or 2, Sure, let's
Right.
put those out there, but diversify a bit. Think about what are some other schools you could apply to too.
Right. Things, maybe schools that are not necessarily, well known globally, but yet they're great schools in the United States.
Like the liberal arts colleges.
Yeah.
小的文理学院
Exactly. So we as, editors and counselors, hopefully have been, putting forth those ideas in our, families and students, when they create their college lists.
Right. Okay. So for changes post COVID-19, so things like community will become more important. Like starting last year, Columbia changed one of their prompts. So Columbia used to have 2 why Columbia prompts, and they changed one to like, what do you value community? So they kept that for this year too. And then academics, yeah, we know everyone had a rough year last year. And in California, that a lot of, like, there was a state, I guess, law that was passed saying, hey, you can change those grades to just pass fail. So a lot of students actually did that for the past year. And then Common App has said they do want to emphasize things like self-care or family responsibilities, since there's really no extracurriculars that people could have done when they were in school at home, right? So they want to shift the focus away from those achievements to, well, what could you actually do at home, and what does that mean for you and your family? Okay. So of course we want to know more about how to write really excellent essays that help you stand out. We have this book, right? So I wrote a good number of essays. Angela helped with the editing, right? So we have this for sale, and you can definitely read a lot of sample essays too, and how it was dissected, right? So we also go through, like, here's how this essay, like, sometimes it's how this essay changed. Here's a rough draft. Here's the final draft, right? How do we analyze, okay, what makes this essay work? What makes this not work? How do we emphasize the right things? How do we make something that's really big focused? So all those techniques are in this book.
Yeah, it's very, very helpful. We spent, many hours on this, Ran and myself, and then of course other editors for IB Max. And I really feel that if students, could purchase this, it's a really good, guideline of how to approach. Again, we're not writing the essays for you guys, or your, children. But nevertheless, it's really going to give a lot of beneficial information prior even to getting into, hopefully you get it before, senior year, before you move into college apps. So, okay, sorry, Brent.
All right. 所以这本书在 Amazon 上，所以这个 ISBN number 也在 screen 上，家长有兴趣的话，可以 Amazon 上直接订。而且呢，更重要的是，所有这个书的这个卖的 profit 都会捐给 CIFA Californians for Equal Rights Foundation。那我们也都知道 CIFA 在这连续几年了为亚裔争取各个方面的权益，特别是教育方面的资源，是做了非常非常之大的贡献的。那我们也很高兴能够在这一路上从这个financial 的角度来讲，支持他们这么有意义的工作。好，那前面2位老师谈到了这么多文书方面该怎么写出真正有灵魂的这个申请文书，怎么样通过作文让自己的申请资料能够与众不同，能够真正的 stand out， 对吧？那我前面提到了课外活动方面一定得非常的积极，对吧？一定得有很好的原材料，那你这些申请的文书才能真的写得很好。那具体的 哪些方面的活动，对吧？什么样的一些平台能够给高中生提供很多这方面的很好的机会呢？那下面我们就有请 Ken 老师跟我们大家分享一下，从学习、从学术、从科研、从各式各样其他的这些公益活动、有益的课外活动方面，怎么样积累自己的素材，那么将来申请大学的时候才能有很好的材料用在这个大学申请的文书里面。
好，谢谢魏老师。首先我们看到的是 AP 课程 ，AP 课程对于学生提高 GPA 与学术竞争的优势是特别重要的，特别是 Seminar 和 Research， 你可以大大的提高这个学术的竞争优势，从而降低大学的学业负担，提前适应大学学习的思维起了积极的作用。因此我们飞达教育提供了各种 AP 课程给到各个年级的学生报名参加，还有为同学提供了大学 Research 经验丰富的富兰克林研究项目。OK， 学生有机会在研讨会展现出版高质量的科学项目和论文，但到底怎么样才能提高学生的学术能力呢？只是参加比赛，主动参与竞争，在有利的竞争环境下成长才是最快速的。Just like the catfish effect。 在飞达教育，我们提供了数学的 AMC、 生物的 USABO 和物理 FMA 的竞赛考场和相关的培训课程。我们会提供最优质的教学资源来帮助同学在竞争中取得良好的成绩。
那我也顺带补充一句，这个今年的 AMC 的比赛就是11月10号和11月16号，所以 AMC 10和12实际上还有不到2个月的时间了，所以学生们一定要抓紧时间，在学校该报名的就要报名了。那如果没能报得上名的，或者学校只能考 A 或者 B 考其中一场考试的，赶快在飞达注册另外一场考试的这个报名，因为我们是 A 和 B 两场考试都举行的。那这个是 AMC 的比赛。其实物理奥林匹克竞赛 F=ma 是它的第一轮的比赛，对吧？那这个马里兰大学教授，这位教授我不知道家长熟不熟悉这个物理奥林匹克比赛的这个大的这个 framework， 这个整个 background information， 对吧？马里兰大学是每年美国国家队的集训地，也就是说，马里兰大学的一大批的教授其实都物理系的教授了，当然是在这个美国物理奥林匹克比赛方面是参与的非常有深度，而且是一直都是在这方面很有经验的指导老师。所以就说这位上课的老师，他不管是直接参与这个物理奥林匹克比赛的准备工作、培训工作，他的周边的同事可是这方面的一些专家哦，所以就是说他的这堂课是非常非常有竞争优势的。那我也请所有物理方面有一定的这个基础的，特别就是说 AP 物理1已经上完了的，是完全可以准备这个物理奥林匹克比赛的。那这样的学生在上了这位教授的课之后，肯定是在 F=ma 比赛里面会取得非常优秀的成绩的。
好，谢谢老师。然后当然在学生注重学业的同时，像刚刚老师们所说的，要如何提高软性竞争力呢？就是这些课外活动也是不可或缺的。我们飞达教育的冬季领袖实习项目 GPL 也正式接受报名了，学生可以参加各种有趣而丰富的活动，从而提高同学对于自身 leadership 的发展。同时这样也能获得100小时的义工小时数，然后更加利于申请总统义工奖，为升学那个 resume 增砖添瓦。
那具体的这些项目，就说这个 screen 上有些简单的介绍，对吧？那今年冬天不光是湖南的这个小额贷款项目会有线上的这个操作的平台，哥斯达黎加和尼泊尔也会推出新的能够通过线上的让学生在这个环境 生物多样性和这个持续性发展，怎么样就说 sort of have a sustainable development program that doesn't affect the environment negatively。其实尼泊尔有很好的这个 samples， 有很好的经历，学生可以学到不少的新的东西。所以就说有兴趣的学生，请赶快跟我们各个学习中心的老师联系参加冬天的这个 virtual GPO 项目。
好，对应今天讲座的主题是如何写一个有灵魂的 essay。我们也有名师名家写作的课程，可以提高同学的文笔，也能同时提升同学 SAT 英文的写作能力，做到一举多得，事半功倍。
那当然，前面 Helen 老师对吧，就他的这个文书指导学生方面的经历，给大家分享了一下写作文方面的这个很好的一些分享。那同时呢，他也是飞达15年来这个 SAT 满分俱乐部的领衔老师，所以就说他的这个秋天的 SAT 的课程，那也是10年级、11年级学生马上要准备 SAT 的很好的一个平台，能够通过短时间内，对吧？上过 Helen 老师的 SAT 课之后 ，SAT 能够考满分、考高分，也还是非常有必要的。虽然我们都知道这个标化考试的成绩现在越来越被淡化，但是呢，对吧？只要是还有一些学校还参考 SAT 的分数，对吧？虽然是 optional， 但是他们也接受这个分数。那你能够有一个高分满分的 SAT 分数，还是有加分的作用，对吧？除非将来所有的大学都完全不考虑 SAT 分数了，对吧？像加大 UC 的校园一样，就是 totally test blind， 不接受 SAT 分数了，那么那个时候你可以放弃 SAT 的准备工作。现在还有些大学还是要看 SAT 分数的，特别是所有的藤校Stanford 等等所有这些学校 ，SAT 只是 optional， 也就是说，你如果分数太糟糕了、太低了，你可以不递，就当没考一样。但是如果考了一个满分高分，递交给大学，还是有一定的这个加分的作用的。所以就是希望准备考 SAT 的学生们，不管10年级还是11年级的，前期的好好准备一下。既然要考，就考一个高分满分出来。
好，然后我们还有很多有趣和丰富的社团活动，还有这个活动是沃顿全球高中是2021 Hackathon 的比赛。然后如果大家对 Computer Science 专业方面感兴趣的话，也可以积极报名。
而且就是说有经验没经验的学生其实都可以参与，特别低年级的学生，如果这是第一次或者以前没有太多这方面的经验，只参加过1、2次，一定利用这些机会，对吧？跟更有经验的大哥哥大姐姐们一块，因为这个是团队的比赛。那在组队的时候，我们也会把不同层次的这个学生分到一个小组里面，这样他们也可以相互学习。同时通过比赛，其实在这个团队精神各个方面也可以有所提高。
好，接下来就是我们的沃顿全球高中投资竞赛，现在已经开始，周一已经开始比赛了。然后这个是主要是偏那些商科的同学们，如果有兴趣的话，也可以了解一下。然后因为这是对于以后的投资生活那些各种方面也是有帮助的。好，接下来是我们的乐器捐赠项目。这个项目是由我们的 Music for Kids 社团还有 Ivy Max 还有 Youth Public Service 一起推出去的，就是能让孩子捐出自己的乐器给贫困的社区，然后还有大大的加强这个社会的服务意识。好，谢谢。现在我们的 Financial Literacy Club 也已经开始招募新成员了，然后如果有兴趣的学生和家长也能加入，谢谢。好，现在这个是 Young Journalist Club， 然后这个是偏向于那些 media and communication 专业的同学，如果你们有这方面的兴趣，也可以多多报名参加，然后将来在 program 上也可以能促进作用。
而且因为这个社团现在是还要找一大堆的这个接班人，因为前面这个社团的发起人啊等等很多 officer 已经是去年申请大学已经进入名校的这些高中毕业生了，所以他们后面还在招募接班人，能够领导这个社团下一步的工作。
好，接下来就是 AI for Action 的在这周日有一个讲座，就我们请到了这个老师来跟大家 inform 一下 AI 的那各方面的知识，如果有兴趣的同学家长可以踊跃参加。在周日的下午4点钟，然后 Zoom ID 是875-731-9079。好，谢谢。好，接下来是 Q&A 环节，请问各位家长有什么问题可以打在我们的 chat box 上，然后我们可以请老师回答你们的问题。Okay, hi Dr. Graben and Dr. Yuanhong. I have the first question is, for additional information questions about COVID-19 impact, does that only include the situation impacted negatively, or can also include your positive contribution to community for COVID-19?
Brend, did you understand that?
Yeah, so it was asking about the additional information section that asked about COVID-19.
Oh, okay, got
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So yeah, you can go first, and if I have, yeah.
So based on the way it's phrased, because of the way the question is phrased in the additional information, it sounds like a negative impact. So
Right.
I would not talk about positive contribution to community for that.
Yeah, unless it's
in
had
fact,
some negative, impact or, embarkment on, the situation that they've experienced, I probably would not write about it.
Yeah, I mean, if you think it's so important that you want to add in the additional information section, then that whole body of experience and stories probably should have been your Common App essay body and
Right.
stories anyway, right? Because that's where you talk about your positive impacts and contributions, right? How you have helped your communities. So that's where it belongs, not in the additional information section.
Yes, very well said, Mr. Wei. Okay.
Oh, the second question is, in general, academic performance occupies what percentage of overall evaluation for college admission? Just the estimated?
There's no such formula. If anybody tells you academics is 25% or 40% or 5% even, it's nonsense. We have admission officers who are at the Ivy League schools, at Stanford, and so on and so forth, at similar schools, telling us they flip open the student's essay and try to comprehend what the student's trying to say, and they are confused and they didn't find anything special. That student is rejected already. Okay, they haven't even looked at the scores and the GPA numbers and all that. So in that particular case, academics, how much percentage is it? 0. So again, there is no such formula. If anybody tells you so, that person doesn't even know what's going on, doesn't even understand the basic one-on-ones of college admissions at the top tier. Now, for a school that's ranked in the hundreds, maybe that's how they admit students by the numbers, but not the Ivy League colleges and schools at that level.
Yeah, I would agree. It's just that they're trying to, pacify the person that they're trying to sell to. That's what I would say. Does that make sense?
Yep. Next question. Okay.
So the next question is, when should the students start preparing for the college application essays? Yeah.
Well, our preparation work starts at in March or so, second half of junior year. So there's essay workshops to teach them how to interpret the essay prompts and how to pick the appropriate subject matter or experiences to select the right materials to answer those essays. So and of course develop students' essay resumes. So many of the preparation work starts during junior year already, but the actual writing of essays, application essays, is typically sometime during the summer, mid to late summer after their junior year.
But if you want to plan so that you have things to write about, that starts years in advance.
As early as possible, right?
Yeah.
Preferably sometime in middle school, but definitely as you enter high school, you should definitely plan to be in a good, effective college planning program. Otherwise, you will not have enough materials to even answer 4, 5, 6 different essay questions for a given college.
Exactly. So, so basically planning can mean two different things, in terms of, getting in your, top school that you're, hoping for, right? That starts, like, Ren said, in middle school, right? And thinking forward. And then, Mr. Wei was saying, like, if you're literally talking about, the application itself, then that needs to start, the summer, even, the spring semester of your junior year. Hopefully that clarifies.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Garvin. The next question is, what kinds of subject of leadership can be most attractive to the interviewer of the college?
So the kinds of leadership that people should be doing would be things that impact our community. Now, I'm saying go beyond your high school a bit, right? So if we say, oh, I'm involved in associate student board and that's my leadership, or I'm president of this club in my school and that's my leadership, that's not really that different from what other people could write about, because a lot of different high schools have very similar clubs. Like lots of schools have FBLA, they have DECA, they have Key Club, right? So unless there's something very specific about what you did, then it doesn't really stand out. But if you have an activity that's wider, let's say you're working with at-risk kids in your community, or you're helping out with local political issues, right? Working with people with other schools, and you have a wider net, then it's more impactful. And that's, I would argue that's better to talk about. Yeah.
Right. Something that, the individual founds that they're really passionate about, and they maybe implement their own club, right? Their own efforts, as opposed to following the lead of another club at their school, right? Ren, is that what you're kind of alluding to?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's going to be more, beneficial, and there's going to be a story behind that, to be honest with you. So that's what I encourage, in my counseling sessions, for students to, enlist and embark upon, and if I can help, I will. So,
Okay, maybe one last question. Ken.
So the one last question is, as the teachers mentioned, is it more special subject will be more effective for the applying? Like just it's more unique subject on your essays when the interviewer will think it's more attractive?
Well, yeah, theoretically, the more special, more unique the subject matter or the topic, the better, right? Whether it's for the essay or for your interview discussions. But on the other hand, do not think, okay, your daily lives stories and small trivial things will not be appropriate for college application essay writing. In fact, the small and the mundane, the daily lives stories are sometimes the best material to use because it shows humility and shows your, down-to-earth personality and all that. And guess what? Because most other students are trying to capture something quote unquote grand or special. If your essay deals with just your daily activities, something small, right? And yet you can elevate your discussions, your reflections to a much higher level. That is actually a great essay to top tier colleges because it reflects your depths of thinking, even on small things, on small daily like activities. You gained valuable high level lessons, right? That shows your capacity to learn and grow. So not necessarily true that you have to find extraordinary or very special, unique stories. Then it's appropriate for college application essays. That is not necessarily the case.
I totally, thank you, Mr. Ray. I totally agree with that. A lot of students think that they have to come up with this grand, like story, and it's sometimes, a lot of times, it's those, kind of, daily, storytelling activities and what they gained and learned from that really, it's super personable and personal, which is what we want. And, and it's memorable. That's what we really want, when a student tells a story, I'm hoping that they can, bring out something that, the reader on, the committee is going to be like, oh my God, I remember that student, because it was personal. So, and, not something extravagant.
Right.
So anyway, that's.
Yeah, I was gonna give some examples. So basically, last year I had a student who got Northwestern. Her Common App was just about balancing fencing with homework, like very simple. I had another student who got into Cornell some years back who talked about volunteering at the library and helping someone apply for jobs, right? And I had a student get into Harvard and she was talking about helping teaching competition math to like low-income neighborhoods, right?
Right.
So they weren't about like big things, travels, or like those kind of things. They were just very personal stories.
Right.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you everybody participated in this meeting. I hope everyone will have the great feedback on this meeting. So now, thanks everybody. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you, Dr.
much,
Garvin.
Thank
Ken.
you. Thank you.
All right.
Good
Good night.
night.
Good night.